Right. Are we good to go? Yeah. Okay. We're not recording.
Here we are now.
We are at the one. Right. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's operations and assets meeting. 7th of November, 25. We usually start off with questions from members of the public. If you have a member of the public, Simon Fox, do you want to take the opportunity to speak now?
Please.
Yeah, okay. We grant you 3 minutes.
Is there like a big clock or something I have to? Okay.
It comes up on the screen.
Yes.
Okay. I'll go then. Councillors, I wish to make a statement with regard to item 11 in particular, but some comments are relevant to item 10. My name is Simon Fox. I'm the Major Projects Officer at the Planning Department of Somerset Council. Officers from Somerset Council have been working with local councillors since the inception of the Shadow Town Council to set out stewardship arrangements for the Orchard Grove site. Our principal aim has been to ensure the sustainable and viable management of public open space, which does not rely on a private management company. Town Council has already adopted green spaces across the town, which will be managed via precept, and fundamentally there is no moral reason why green spaces from new developments should not be managed in the same way. Garden town aspirations and indeed good planning points to stewardship as a key ingredient, and within that, fairness and equity stand as key pillars. Residents of new homes, including first-time buyers, should not be subjected to effectively a double tax, paying precept to the town council whilst also paying extortionate service charges to an arm's length private management company. I recognise the financial pressures and challenges faced by all tiers of local government, and to the hesitancy of taking on additional green spaces that would be managed wholly by precept. And hence the lesser of two evils is the suggestion I have made that a hybrid model whereby the town council operates a management company with the ability to subsidise those management charges with precept seems to me to be the most sustainable and viable route at this current time. This should, in my opinion, form part of your local authority adoption model as part of item 10 on your agenda. As green spaces continue to be developed at Orchard Grove, it's becoming imperative that the Town Council sets out its position with regard to future management to avoid a development consortium, otherwise consolidating an arm's length private management company arrangement, a threat we have been under for many months. I commend the Deputy Chief Executive's work on this matter and thank him for working with me to progress this decision. At the heart of this decision must be one of equity and fairness amongst your residents. For example, is it fair that just because someone buys a new house, they should be forced to pay an extortionate private management company fees when those living in existing homes across the road pay just council tax, yet will use the open spaces, play areas and facilities within the new developments, yet they will pay nothing towards their upkeep? We know that private management companies charge high admin fees, are less accountable to those who pay service charges, and will stick to a rigid maintenance schedule that does not allow for future adaptation or investment in the open spaces over the years to come. Town Council oversight means those concerns would not come to pass, and a management company operated by the Town Council, and better still a hybrid version where funds are realised from both a lower service charge and a council tax subsidy, insulates all parties from the cost of delivering high quality developments, and I hope for a positive decision to allow discussions to continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Look at that. Spot on.
That's radio.
Well, thank you very much for that, Simon. I know you have a strong interest in all these developments because you help assist with the planning of all these areas. And I think as councillors, I think we're all one mind. We want what's best for our residents. So I think it's your thoughts and suggestions on this. I think it's something that we will take into account because, as I just said, we want what's best for our residents. And can I just kind of like when these new houses, is there something in their deeds about? Is there always something put into their deeds about having to pay? So it's already there up front anyway. Okay, just to clarify. So I wasn't talking about. But yes, I think we should certainly take your views on board and give them good consideration. I don't believe there's anybody else from the public. In that case, we shall move straight on to tonight's meeting and start with apologies. I haven't received any apologies, but you have
Received apologies for Councillor Stainthorpe Chair, but that's it.
Right, and okay, so that's duly noted. So then item 2, declarations of interest. Does anyone have anything else to declare of discussions? So, I think when it comes to the cleaning materials tender, I know that part of the report is about obtaining cleaning materials that are ethically sourced and sustainable. So I will declare that I am a member of a zero waste shop and do work at a zero waste shop, which obviously sells these products. So I shall restrict my comments and certainly won't put myself forward for the tender process on that one, just in case there's any conflict. So that's the only thing I would declare there. Anything else anyone wishes to? No. Okay. Right. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting held on the 30th of September. I hope you've all had a chance to review them. I have nothing to add or change. Councillor Ellis?
Just a small thing. Is it possible to know under the French working session inquiry that the local member was against? It's just because I don't want my residents thinking that I was in agreement. Is it possible to note that? Because it just sounds like, well,
don't actually make a note of who votes which way. Is a record ever kept of who votes which way?
Has to be specifically stated.
It has to be specifically stated.
Saying.
So, well, I can put it to the committee. Are we happy that that has added to the minute? Councillor Ellis. Councillor Firm, did you want to?
Oh yeah, I think you need to declare a named vote to get that recorded.
oh, do you?
Yes.
Oh. I'll do that then next time.
But I'd like to propose we note this one.
Thank you.
Marcus.
Yes, Chair, sorry, I was just going to bring up as two sort of matters arising. Obviously, events have sort of overtaken us in relation to the toilets item, whereby they have unfortunately had to be closed due to issues with the fabric of the building and codes, just for the committee's awareness. Because obviously that was the toilets, sorry.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the concession, discussions are still going on with the applicant and the Fields in Trust. So
Yes.
no updates as yet on that, but Fields in Trust have confirmed that field change request form would be required. So there was some discussion about whether it was required or not, and they've come back and confirmed that it would be. So we need to then work out the implications of that with the applicant and whether they still wish to proceed.
And is there a cost associated?
Yes, there is a cost, a basic fee cost of £150, and then I think there's potential costs of up to 2,000 for the.
And that's awarded to the applicant, is it? Or
We have to make the application as landowner, but then they would have to indemnify us, and you know the applicants have made aware that those costs can't be covered by the public purse, so it would have to be by the person making the interest with the business.
And have you been back to the applicant to advise for that?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Just as that did.
Yeah. Yes, the further. So, yeah. So, are you happy that we, unless it was named, that we should just follow the format? I think that one. So, something to remember for future. So, update on the French toilets, of course, is that we did approve to maintain them and open them, but they are closed at the moment due to external issues, which I came to looking at. There's one other forward matter arising as well, is the community payback. It was hoped, and part of the report and part of the planning that led up to the report was always about community payback, cutting back our hedges along our pedestrian highways, not hedges alongside roads, but alleyways. It was hoped they would do that. I remember I reported back to the full council that they've been engaging with us and they have been out working in our open spaces. And I have heard that some of our alleyways have been cut back, but I have a feeling that may now be Somerset Council. So I may have miscredited there because there's 2 alleyways in my patch, and I heard back from residents saying, "Oh, they've been cut back very nicely," and I made the assumption it had been the community payback, but we're not entirely sure it was. Myself and Marcus are meeting them on Monday, aren't we? We are going to try and pursue this because I think it's good. It's a good thing if we can get them to do that, and it was part of the initial discussions. I remember when Paul Grant raised it with me back in the summer. That was the emphasis, to get him to cut back our hedges, and we identified a large number of them alleyways around the town that we could do, and we have since added to that list from other members. But we can see how the meeting goes on Monday. Marcus.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think we've identified that there's been greater concentration on litter picking rather than cutting back, whereas we would think, speaking to Councillor Smith-Roberts, she said the areas that we identified for cutting back, there's a whole raft of other areas that if litter picking is what they actually are able to do more of, then there's a different conversation. But I think we can pick that up on Monday.
Yeah. Right, so other than that, I'm happy to, there are no other matters arising or amendments, then I'm happy to sign these. Do I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Berman. All those in favour? That was unanimous. Lovely. Right, I'll sign those at the end of the meeting. Right, item 4, forward plan. We're at the 27th. The next one will be the end of January. So only the 3 items at the moment. Is there anything else in the pipeline coming up? You know, Marcus?
So, sorry. Right, Chair, that scroll down to the bottom, there is a sort of list of ones that don't have a fixed date. So there's the graffiti agenda request for that. And Councillor Smith-Roberts is working on with colleagues, but it's not quite yet ready to come to 90 for decision.
Thank you. Has anyone got any comments they'd like to make? No? So this is just for noting, isn't it? So I don't need to adjust them. Right, okay, so we can move on to item number 5, which is the budget for 2026, 2027. So we have with us today Gail, our finance officer, and we have the report, which if you all had a chance to read. Just to say that as members, we have, just for the public record, as members, we have been able to review this report ourselves together as a committee beforehand, just to go over any things that we didn't quite understand or anything we wanted to raise at the time. So it's a big budget, nearly 3.6 million, and so we wanted to have the opportunity to have longer to go over it than we would say in this meeting, in a public meeting here. With that said, are you happy to talk to the report again?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So the budget attached is simply the budget for this committee, which totals 3.45 million approximately, which is 50.7% of the budget that we are the proposed draft budget for 26-27. The budget itself has been developed using a zero-based budgeting, so we've gone back and looked at the spend and then predicted forward based on existing spend. The full draft budget shows an increase of 3.7% with a preset requirement of 6,815,406. And that, if agreed, once all committees have reviewed and scrutinised their budgets, would mean a £12.06 rise in the Band D for next year, but that's based on last year's tax base. So the tax base obviously changes annually. Just specific items about the budget. We're obviously putting in place a slightly revised structure for operations and assets. So those two areas have been separated, and currently the payroll for the operations team has been put into a new cost centre. But most of the costs surrounding operations and assets have been left in 130 operations, and those will be vied across during the year as the spend is allocated to whichever team. Additionally, there are a number of areas where we've put in place called a bucket budget, because it's very difficult, given that we don't have a lot of historic cost data, to forecast forward budgets on individual allotments, pavilions, ground maintenance, play areas, toilets, etc., etc. So we've actually pulled together from this year's budget all of those areas, and I've compared them in the report to the proposed budget for next year. This year those areas were totaling just over 222,000. Next year we're proposing 145,000 for those items. In addition to that, as well as we have considerable difficulties metering problems for the utilities, so we're going to approach that in the same way, because we just can't get to the bottom of some of the metering charges, and some of those don't work, and there are significant issues that so those are the main items surrounding that. Additional codes have also been added. We've added 20,000 for replacement and repair of lighting and standalone posts for SIDS. We've added 17,900 for football goals, sockets, nets, etc. £15,000 for pavilion upgrades and £15,000 for sport pitch improvements. We've added an additional £20,000 to the play park refurbishment budget to go along with the earmarked reserves and the application to the lottery to help cover the cost of the play park refurbishment. Capital projects have been lumped into one sum because, of course, the capital projects will be allocated based on committee approval and resource available for delivery. So they're all under the capital projects, and things such as surfacing and lining of parks, disc golf, wayfinder signs and additional traveller defences will fall in there, and that's been set at 250,000. PC improvements has been reduced from 350 to 200,000 again next year. An additional £50,000 has been added in the capital spend for open spaces to cover a sinking fund for machinery. We purchased a considerable amount of machinery this year due to the fact that it was a new service, so we will have to set aside monies to replace that machinery over its life. And additionally, we've added a further 50,000 for operational growth has been included in the service growth and improvement to cover areas that may arise that we currently don't have sight of. Anybody have any questions about the budget?
Lovely, thank you, Gail. Yes, I should also point out actually at the beginning when I said that we were overseeing a budget of 3.6 million, or around about 3.6 million. That's of course the budget that we as a committee oversee. It's not the budget of the whole council. The scale there is about 57% of council's budget. Well, I'd like to thank Gail and Marcus and those on the Operation Assets teams for putting this together. It's 12 pages long. It's a lot, you know. Our budget oversees all the allotments that we own, and all the parts, all the maintenance of the parts, or the toilets, or the AED devices. You know, all of these have their own separate little items. Though it took me a while to understand that while those separate items are in each other parts, then they have all been put into one bucket. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for that work you've done, because it is a mammoth task, and it is available on our website as part of this meeting. So Are there any questions that members would like to ask? Have the opportunity. Councillor Ellis, that's
Are we going to do like we did? I think we did last year. I forget what point we did this. Was it after we'd made our budgeting decisions? We did some nice little graphics about this is what the bits, the precept that relate to us go on, so that people can see very, very clearly. And I think almost a lot of these the budget stuff needs a sort of I know you've done the report, but like a sort of public facing narrative, that tells a sort of story, just like little, bullet points, little paragraphs that sort of adds to the narrative so people can kind of understand, get a grip on it. Because I think, in the unlikely event that anyone's poring over budget papers, they can be quite confusing, especially because cost centres, we've had to move things from one code, haven't we, to another. So like they might think, cultural development, which is in a weird place, and it's now got 0 against it for next year, but that's because it's somewhere else, isn't it?
That's the community.
Yeah, so there's lots of weirderies if you look at it into the detail, the fine detail, without reading the report and without that sort of contextual knowledge and understanding what what's in another bit of the budget, you will very readily get confused. But I just think it's from the public's point of view, they just need the sort of headlines, don't they? They need to understand for each of the different areas, how much it costs to clean the looms, how much we're thinking of investing in improved toilet provision and the play park stuff, and all of the different things that come under ops and assets. That's just what I wanted to say.
Yes, was there a question in there?
Yeah, it was about what we're going to do. I think she was nodding. Gail was nodding, but she might like to respond about the sort of public facing explanatory notes, as it were, and graphics.
Yes, thank you. We normally do that after the full budget's agreed. So each of the individual budgets, once they're consolidated, are obviously scrutinised by the Finance and Governance Committee, then go to full council. And at that stage, with those, the figures that are presented to full council will have those graphs in them.
Yes, under the service growth and improvements, we've got the CCTV section and lists the budget for next year as 0. Does that mean we won't be running them, or we'll still be?
No, those have been moved over to the community in place budget because they manage them. So they're under the community in place committee now.
Thank you.
So I think it's worth pointing out that the service growth and improvements pot feeds a number of committees, probably feed into that one. Communities, place, ops and assets, and not sure what other communities actually would feed into it. Probably finance. So yeah, so that's service growth, even though it appears on our budget as well, when not every line is for us. I was just going to ask about the electricity costs that we're struggling with. Is that for Deane House and the depot?
No, it's for the parks, it's for the toilets, it's for all of those things that we've taken over from previous councils, and it's trying to work out exactly where the meters are, what the meter readings are, and some of those meters we've discovered don't work, and it's then engaging the suppliers to give us accurate bills.
That would be overestimating what, and we hope that it will be less.
It's hard to tell actually at the moment. Monthly, the operations and assets team go around, read the meters. We put the meter readings in. We get a variety of bills, so, and again, some of those meters reset themselves before we get the bill. So it is a considerable amount of work. Not only that, water to business causes us problems from the water side as well. So it's unravelling years of utilities, I think.
Thank you. Is there anything else? If not, thank you very much for this work, and I'm happy to recommend this. This budget now goes to finance and governance, doesn't it? So we have. I'm happy to recommend that this goes forward in its current form to finance and governance. So I'm happy to propose that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ennis. All those in favour? Thank you. That passed unanimously. So that will now go to the finance government, who then oversee the whole of the 6.8 million, do they?
Yes.
Right. So budget item number 6, cleaning materials tender. So what we are, so we're being asked to agree to the issue of a tender for cleaning goods and materials and nominate a member to participate in the tender assessment panel. So, Gail, are you happy to just give us a summary of this report?
I think, yes, Chair, I think you put it in a nutshell, actually. That's a summary of the report. We've obviously took on the toilet cleaning just over 12 months ago and took on a contract, but we didn't, I think we needed to do more work when we understood how much of the cleaning materials we were using. So now we're proposing a tender of a 3+1 year basis, so a 3-year contract with the option to extend for a year, and sending out a tender for that to see if we can get best value for the goods and services that we are currently procuring. And in line with the financial regulations, we're asking that a member of this committee sits on the tender panel when that tender's closed to evaluate the tender. There's a rough draft of the tender attached to this document as well, which has been reviewed by the place officer in terms of environmental.
Yes, thank you for that. And just looking through the questions that we're asking on the tender, and then eco-friendly, and looking at the packaging and the artificial fragrances, and again eco certifications that we are trying to use materials and products that are eco-friendly, environmentally friendly, that have least impact, and certainly in terms of their packaging. I think that's been good. So the companies to be invited to tender, they will answer those 13 questions, and we have a scoring matrix against that.
We will have when the tender's gone out, yes.
Is that will that be similar to the one we use for the pay part tenders, where we have a marking criteria?
There will be, but it won't be as stringent because, of course, that's a £1.2 million project.
So, I mean, I'm all in favour of us using eco products. As I say, they are available now, and the more we can cut down on the packaging and plastic packaging, and the more aware we are of the chemicals that we're using, which are in the end going back into the water supply, and try and make sure that we reduce our environmental impact when we're doing this. I think it's part aligned to our strategies and our visions, environmentally visions. Councillor Ellis, do you have your?
Yeah, so this just is about the contract for the toilets, public conveniences.
Yes, and any other materials that we're buying currently.
Oh, so that applies to what you buy in the office and the depot?
No, it's more in the operations side, so it's the facilities type.
So pavilions and whatnot, doodah. So why do we need tea bags and coffee then? Is that where do we have tea bags and coffee in a? I'm just trying to think where we would provide that in a pavilion. Is there a pavilion where we provide that? Just seems a bit odd. Just like cleaning materials and tea bags of coffee. I was like, oh, biscuits. There's no biscuits.
Sorry, the procurement officer has went out to the ops and assets team and asked them what they wanted to be included in the tender, and these ones that have come back.
So yeah, so it's for our staff to have a couple. I don't, I would to our staff a cup of tea. Yeah, I'm a bit sort of confused about what's meant to be, what we're expecting to be eco and what not, because it says like eco kitchen roll, but then it just says we need jumbo toilet rolls, standard toilet rolls, and there's a whole thing about toilet paper, isn't there? There's a whole shebang about, whether it's made of bamboo or recycled paper, what's the best, what's got the lowest carbon footprint. Yeah, I don't know how specific you want to get, but it doesn't really say anything about that, is it? Should I be concerned? I mean, I'm sort of like, yeah, just bit odd because it mentions specifically eco kitchen roll and then just standard toilet rolls and things like that. Just seemed a bit, unless there's something further down. I did speed read all this, but you know, your brain goes.
Well, likewise, and I missed the tea bags.
It was very draft, this, because the committee was sitting and we knew that we needed to get a member to sit on the tender panel. So that's why it was very draft when it came. But it was the idea was that you know, we do need somebody, but we also need to send this tender out, which falls within the contract finder. So we wanted to get that moving and get your authority to send it out.
Can I ask, would it make sense also? I mean, we still use the cleaning materials here, and definitely if we not have the same people supply everything.
But it's the same people who, so the facilities assistants who clean the toilets come here and do our cleaning. So yes, they will use these cleaning materials.
Okay.
It's not, so they don't leave them. It's all about buying them and supplying them.
It's a bit odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Councillor
You want to?
Yeah, yeah, I think I just need clarification about tea bags.
Yeah.
As a copy of it.
I
No, I don't want to be hung up about, I don't want to be sort of known as the sort of thing, but it just seems a bit odd that if we're looking at cleaning materials and so on and so forth, and tea bags and coffee, 1 kilogram of coffee and decaf coffee. So I think, yeah, I think I need clarification on that. But I think on the other things, Councillor Rose was talking about, I think in the report, it says that our climate officers had a look at this as well. So Jill has had some input. So I'm sure that she would have maybe had some input about the loo rolls, possibly. Thank you.
I can say she did. She spent time with Louise, our procurement officer, going through what she felt we should be asking people for.
You think about the fact we've got tea bags and coffee might just put people off from tendering, because they might think, oh, we can do all of that, but we can do the tea bag and coffee.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Dana.
Yeah, I think it's better off you didn't tea bag
Yes.
as much as I was thinking perhaps we can use them to clean something. I don't know. Yeah, it just seems a
I
bit.
think that's the same as those the cubes you get in the toilets, the freshness.
Yeah, I mean, so we want to be moving away from artificial anything and smelly whatever's are totally unnecessary and going as eco as possible. But it just seems still strange to me that it's not more specific about certain issues. So are we saying, I don't know, it just, so you're saying that the climate officers had a look at this, but then clearly this isn't the final version. So is there more detailed one somewhere where she's gone through it with a fine tooth comb and said, not this, this type of this? Because some of them are like, microfiber. I mean, I'm assuming those are the ones that I get, like, the eco ones. It's just, I don't understand. I mean, there's eco and there's eco as well. You know what I mean? There's like differences between different sort of options for things.
I think those are the things that the tender will be evaluated against. Because I believe that's been developed based on what we're using currently as well.
Why can't we say eco toilet roll then? Why do they have to just be standard and not?
Yes, because you do get is it who gives a crap, isn't there?
Yeah. And there's those other ones. Was it Nick? What's the other one that's brown with the brown paper?
And my understanding on the toilet rolls is it doesn't matter how many times they fill them up a day, they disappear, and that's probably not from usage. So I think if we're spending considerable budget on eco ones, I don't think they'll last.
Yes, so that's cost of. Okay, so you're looking at who's using the products there, aren't you?
Best value for the council, whilst falling in line with our eco aspirations.
Well, it'd be nice. I think we're in agreement to remove the tea bags and coffee. Do we need to vote on that, or can we just?
No.
Because it does seem, so that reading through the list now, I think I just before I got to the bottom, but oh yeah. I have to say I use eco dishwasher tablets at home. Good. I should know how they're made because I use them all the time. I can't off the top of my head remember. So I mean, I'm fully supporting this. It has environmental and eco built into it. It's been checked by an environmental officer and Jordan. Maybe we'll move to tea. Yeah, I think tendering for tea and coffee there. I mean, would we have to, does this require us to have a separate tender for who supplies our tea and coffee? No.
Can we amend something about the toilet rolls? This is really, and paper hand towels as well. I mean, just to sort of say that this will be in the criteria. So somebody's saying, say if you have like 2 or 3 companies and one is saying all of our stuff will be this, it'll be sourced carefully, this paper is made of blah, and it's actually not that expensive. Do you know what I mean? It's got to be a factor, hasn't it? Because there can be nasty crap in standard toilet rolls that we want to be avoiding, surely, if we can get some, you know, it doesn't even say recycle, you know, it's a recycle, does it?
Or it's so I can add that my computer's just I was looking up, is it, I mean, can we add it to one of the questions that on the tender? Can you give us more detail about your toilet rolls? Say that we are looking for most environmentally.
We are of course looking for best value as well, in line with our financial regulations. As we are keepers of the public.
Take our layers feedback.
Yeah.
Add something about toilet rolls to that list of questions we ask.
Okay.
You'd be happy with that, Councillor Ellis? Because it would be something we mark company against.
Well, why can't we just amend it to say eco toilet? Because eco is quite vague, isn't it? It's giving a bit of leeway. It's not being like overly specific, is it? Because there's eco and there's eco. So somebody might be saying, well, say, I don't know, whatever it is, a certain type of cleaner or cloth. They might be saying, well, we would give you this type of cloth and it's eco. And someone else would say, I'm going to give you this type of cloth and it's eco. But actually, then you look at the details and one is a bit crap and the other one is way got better credentials, and if there's no difference in price. So I don't know why we can't say why all of them the thing, why doesn't it say all of them are environmentally friendly materials, everything, not just why is the toilet roll, the hand towels being like, oh well, don't have to worry about that, that'll have to be eco. That's the way it reads, which I don't think is what was intended.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm balancing that with the costs of the council.
We're kind of assuming that there wouldn't be a possibility of getting eco ones at a good price, which I think, I mean, because normally when you buy the standard ones, you think, oh great, cheap, and then actually think the amount of bits of paper on a roll, it's not, doesn't actually work, often doesn't work out cheaper.
I mean, I'm assuming that we're looking just for one company here, aren't we? To supply that list. We're not looking for 2 or 3 to do parts of that list and other companies. So we're looking for one company. So if that one company is doing eco everything else, I would have thought their own internal procedures would mean that they would have a similar views to you about the toilet roll that they're supplying.
They can't be amended to say eco paper hand towel. Everything else is eco.
Okay.
Literally everything else is, apart from the gloves, which you can actually get eco gloves. I bought a pair of eco gloves at Thames. Might as well. And then it's not being overly specific, but eco bit, because you just go for what is the best, most environmentally friendly, decent option for now that we can get our mitts on and not blow the budget, isn't it? That's what we're talking about. I'm not talking about like going completely.
And to be honest, if it's one company supplying all, if they're doing eco everything else, I would have thought they would be interested in providing eco friendly or environmentally sustainable toilet roll as standard anyways. So it probably has nothing to add environmental to this terminology.
Can we add that?
Do we have to vote on that?
Yeah.
We do.
You don't need to vote.
We don't need to vote on that. So we are recommending that we add the environmental eco toilet roll. Councillor Furman, you had your hand up.
I think I've forgotten what I was going to say. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So we'll make sure it says in eco toilet roll. If we're going to do that, do we still want to add a question to, since it's such a sensitive issue?
So I'll speak,
Ask a question, which is something else we can ask again. Yes.
we can speak to the climate and place officer about what questions he thinks are most appropriate.
I think the important thing here is that we are fulfilling our aims as the town council to be as environmentally friendly and have minimal impact on our environment as possible, and this is one way that we can achieve that. And that we will all support this process. The next tricky bit now, of course, is, well, we need a willing volunteer to help us. Oh. Am I the only one looking at Councillor Ellis that way?
I wouldn't underestimate, even for like,
Yeah.
this might seem quite small, but have you done the tender thing?
I've
haven't
done
you?
10 for the brain.
I have as well, and it will melt your brain.
Yeah,
It will melt your brain
but
quite easily.
I've already explained why I've had to put myself 4 different tender.
When is this likely to happen?
I will,
January, February time, I think.
Okay, I'll do it if you send me. So how's it going to work? Because it's fine if I get like a score sheet, the criteria, all of that gubbins, separate document, and then whatever's come in, and then a idiot thing about how you're scoring, because I might have got that a little bit here, whatever, wrong before. And then so it basically, we look at the tenders, you've got a week or whatever, and then we have a meeting to input scores. Is it that? Okay, that's fine. What an idiot.
excellent. So, right, are we happy to move on to the voting now?
Yes.
So let's do this one at a time so we can, so first of all, agree to the issue of a tender for cleaning goods and materials with the recommendations of adding to the list the environmentally friendly toilet roll and tissue.
And paper towel, paper
towel.
hand towels.
And what was the other? Oh, and removal of
Tea bags.
tea bags and coffee. So was that. And are you proposing, Councillor?
No, I'm saying it's your.
Oh,
You are.
I'm just doing the first one.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm just doing the first one. So I'm happy to propose that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? Right, so we have agreed to issue the tender. So the next bit, to nominate a member to participate in the tender assessment panel. So this committee nominates Councillor Ellis. Do we need to write that out? Or we can just say nominate a member. So we can just say we've nominated. So this committee is nominating Councillor Ellis to participate in the tender assessment panel. Do I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Fern. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. All those in favour? Well done. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll be able to bring my superior toilet cleaning knowledge to bear.
Yes.
I do like a nice clean bathroom.
Excellent. Yes. Well, I think probably have to do the scoring in the comfort room.
Or on the pot.
Oh. Right. Doing that. Right. So item number 7. Changing places review progress update. So I'm going to invite Richard in a moment to just give us an update on what's been happening with the Paul Street toilets. There have been a couple of issues that you're going to talk about, aren't you, and how they've been resolved. And then I'll go through the recommendations that we're voting on. So we don't have to vote on noting, do we? Always have to write this out. So, Richard, are you happy to tell us what's been happening at Paul Street?
I certainly am, Chair, and
Changing places. Sorry, changing places. Yes, sorry, then it's Paul Street. Yes. So,
Good evening. Yeah, I was just going to clarify that the first report here is in relation to the changing places review, and then they're linked, but then we move on to the Paul Street at item 8, I think it is.
We won't be able to just follow straight on, will we? Got to break the note. Just wondering if one report rolled into the other.
No, I think it's two separate.
Yeah, I think, yeah, okay, so let's start with the changing places.
No problem. Yeah, there is, as you'll see, quite a bit to the report. So I will give you a, well, hopefully a whistle-stop tour, essentially with the background to this, essentially where we're at and what's happening next. So as you can see, the purpose of the report is essentially to provide a progress update in relation to the review. It also sets out an action plan and timeline for the completion of the review, which gives you a view in terms of the actions we've still got to take. And it does make some specific recommendations to delegate both powers and budget to officers to essentially complete the review and implement the changes that are identified as being required. Very quickly, by way of background, as you're probably aware, we're in the process essentially of gearing up to run 3 changing places facilities. We've inherited one at Building 2 from Somerset Council, and then the Cannon Street and Paul Street refurbishments are both making provision for additional changing places facilities. You'll recall that back on the 30th of September, a report came to this committee, which specifically at that point was looking in relation to Building 2 mainly, which explained that we had identified some potentially significant health and safety risks in respect of that facility. As a result of that, an operational decision had to be taken to actually close that facility temporarily, but pending the undertaking of this full review to actually identify in more detail what those risks are, and then crucially identify what actions we need to take or solutions we need to implement to actually enable us to open again. The review itself essentially is being undertaken in 4 stages. The first stage has been to both identify and then fully understand the specialist guidance that's out there that is provided by the Changing Places Consortium. The second stage then has been to use that guidance to actually allow us to update and essentially inform both our risks and crucially equalities impact assessments in respect of these facilities. The third stage then is involving wider research, and actually we're going quite wide with that. As you'll see from the report appendices, we have talked quite a wide selection of both town district councils that run these facilities to get a feel for what's going on elsewhere. We're in the process of trying to engage with the users of these facilities, because I think particularly given the fact that they're severely disabled, it's important that we get their view in terms of actually what works for them and how they want to see this work. We're also talking to potential private sector providers of some specific solutions, and in addition we're talking to local partners such as Somerset Council, and then different elements of Somerset Council such as the library and the Somerset Museum. The fourth stage then is essentially, having gathered all this information and understood in detail the position, refreshed our risk assessments, etc., is to actually identify what changes we need to make, procure them and implement them, because at that point essentially we can open. So in terms of, that's what we're doing in terms of where we're at with that progress wise. The first 2 stages are largely complete. So that essentially means that we now have a good understanding of the specialist guidance that's out there. We've had some limited contact with the Changing Places Consortium, not as much as perhaps would have been ideal, but they're a difficult bunch to actually pin down to an actual meeting, which in fairness to them I think is due to resourcing issues. We also reviewed both in detail now both the risk and equalities impact assessments. They've those exercises have identified a number of key areas that we need to focus on, and I've listed them in the report, but to summarise them quickly, access controls and arrangements for people getting access to the facilities, but also we need to look and be sure that both our fire alarm procedures and equipment is where it needs to be, that the emergency alarms are both provided but are actually working in a reasonable way, and that's the entire process from both pulling the alarm cord and actually getting a response. Signage obviously is absolutely critical in respect to these facilities, and again we need to work through, I think, both the external signage and the internal signage to make sure it's doing the job it needs to do. And then linked to all of this is making sure that we've got adequate procedures in training in place for those staff that are actually involved in maintaining these facilities. So that's quite a big list. And actually that I think is probably a much bigger list than was seen on the original report that you looked at. And as you perhaps seen with this, my experience of undertaking this is it's actually got bigger as we've gone through, unfortunately. The third stage of this, the research phase, is ongoing. We've made very good progress talking to other councils. We made very good progress talking to local partners, and I've had some very positive responses from Somerset Council, which I think will help. Interestingly, most of the other councils that we've spoken to, the majority are putting in place some form of enhanced access arrangements, and by enhanced I mean over and above simple reliance on radar keys. But there's a whole variety of different approaches going on out there, and you know, from a number of verbal conversations I've had, I think we're not the only council to be struggling with this. I think others have been down that path before. Our engagement with the disability community is we are trying to engage. Actually, we have struggled to get responses despite having contacted a number of disability groups locally, but we're persevering. So one of the recommendations in the report is to provide funding to enable us to actually convene via an organisation called WESL, essentially a group of severely disabled people that we can engage with and ask questions. We've also developed a questionnaire that we intend to launch next week. I think that's been shared today with the members of the member programme working group. So I'd be very grateful if you could have a look at that over the next day. So I appreciate it's short notice, but just give us any feedback that you have. And again, we want to get that out and get some responses to some specific questions. In terms of next steps, as I've said, the Appendix 6 contains a plan and timeline, which are based on what we've seen so far. These are the actions that we think we need to complete and the sort of timeline that it's going to take to actually get this completed. To manage expectations, yes, we've made good progress, but there's still quite a bit to do. And we do need, I think, to undertake this period of consultation. We then need to quickly in January make decisions, procure and implement them. But realistically, I think we may not be seeing these facilities open until March. The recommendations therefore, firstly, to note the progress that we've made to date, essentially to instruct us to complete the engagement with users and potential suppliers, and crucially, in order that we can move quickly to delegate powers to complete this, to identify solutions, and also to allocate funding of 8,300 to cover what is our best estimate at the moment of the potential one-off costs for this. And obviously I've made, just make the point as well that I'm reporting monthly to the member programme working group, as you're aware, and will continue to do so. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Councillor Fern, jump straight in.
Thank you. Have you been able to talk directly to Councillor Evans, Gemma Evans?
I don't think we have, but
I think she would be very interested to see, what changes you've been made, and she'd very much like to, try it out to see if it would work for her.
Yeah. Okay, I'm more than happy to do that. Any engagement we can get that would help us do this would be much appreciated. Thank you.
A former councillor, Simon Clark. And I think he was at the opening actually. He was. So he would definitely. I don't know if you've spoken to him recently, but I would make contact.
Again, we can reach out. I think that's useful. Thank you.
Next on my list was Karen. Councillor stuff.
So we're definitely going ahead with the Westall thing. They're going to convene something, is that right?
If you're happy to allocate the budget, then we will get on and start to organise that next week.
Yeah, no, that would be great. And then we've also got the survey, so there's lots of different opportunities. Are we going to put Westall in touch with people like, well, Gemma, like Simon, like different the community groups in the community where they could recruit? Because there's so many different, like there's the Albemarle Centre just around the corner, and they've got their own changing places inside the building. So there'll be people, you know, they'll have users which use changing places. I mean, it's a bit slightly different, obviously, because it is, once you're in, you're not going to have to do a code or anything. So it's slightly different, but are we going to, like, you know, put them in touch with?
Yeah, I think what we're kind of taking a two-pronged approach here, because yes, we're going to give Western essentially a remit to what I'm saying to them, and I've had a conversation with them, is actually, can they convene a group for a 1.5 to 2 hour session of the users of these facilities, so severely disabled people and their carers, so that we can get them on probably a Teams call, but so that we can essentially run through that survey with them and have a wider conversation about their experience. At the same time, we're going to push the survey out to the groups we've already contacted, but via email, and then do some chasing telephone conversations, I think, to say, look, you know, can you either respond to this yourselves and or push this out to individuals that, you know, use these facilities or need them, and please do encourage them to respond. You know, I think it's having done all the research, I'm very conscious of the fact, you know, I'm not a user of these facilities, and we need to. I think we can get some very valuable insight from people that use them.
So
Yeah, I mean, this is a really critical, this is a really important project, and then there's a saying in the disability movement, nothing about us without us. So this bit, the engagement bit, is arguably the most important thing. And I think there's it doesn't surprise me that you haven't had much response from groups, because sometimes they're just so busy running services and raising funds to run services. And that, what I've discovered through my the campaign around the total shafting of disabled people of working age who've been migrated to universal credit and then got slapped with massive council tax bills, is there's no group standing up for disabled people. There's no like independent like campaign, civil rights, equal access, social justice group as well that's also then able to sort of generate policy ideas. It doesn't exist. It's something that we maybe should look to facilitate. It wouldn't be that, I mean, it would require a budget, and maybe that's something for the future, but I just think this part of it is really important, and I just want to thank you. Oh, a question. So is it that if this goes to plan, we'll do all of this stuff, and then at the end of March, will it be that we have all this resolved, and we have the three, I keep on having to remind myself, it's Vole bus station, Paul Street will be done by then, and Cannon Street. So the aim is to have all those three. Is there another one I'm forgetting about?
We'll do Wall Street, Cannon Street.
Yeah.
I'm only looking at 3 at the minute.
Yeah.
So I need to check timetable for the Cannon Street.
Yeah.
Wall Street's proceeding.
Just say that they're not the only 3 in the town, though, are they? There are. Does Compass have one? Did we think?
Compass has one, but I think it was always, unless I'm much mistaken, it didn't quite meet. There's something. It's like it basically is. But there's one aspect of the thing that it doesn't meet because of the size of it, but it basically functions as that, essentially. And then there's the Albemarle, and there might be another option.
I mean, I guess those buildings have to be open at the time, don't they? Whereas the 3 we own are always accessible, aren't they?
The crucial difference is that ours are essentially standalone toilet facilities that are unmanned. You know, if you've got one inside a building,
well, yeah,
you've got some that allows you an element of policing in terms of who goes in them. to just coming back to your question, yeah, what we're trying to do is get to a point whereby sort of mid-January, we've got the responses, we've collected the data from other councils, we can make some decisions in terms of actually what we think we need to do. I have to say and caveat that obviously those decisions, I think, given the risk profile with this, the decisions need to be, I think, driven by the kind of risk profile, but taking into account the other factors. So what I'm saying essentially is that, it may well be that the disability community come forward and say we absolutely want it to work this way, but actually we may still need to make some hard decisions in terms of if we just judge actually that is too risky and it doesn't allow us to discharge our duty of care, then we may need to have to look to do something slightly differently. But again, at this point, we're collecting the data. I'm very heavily involved, obviously. John Kramer is our risk officer in this and working very closely with Jack Baldwin as the assets officer as well. So, and we're obviously doing what we can to balance all of this. And actually, I've got the, as I've said, I do intend to actively involve the member programme working group. So we can keep you posted. And if we need at times, just to bounce ideas around, then we can bring them to you as well.
Is your
I can go after.
Yes, but I think Catherine has been waiting to speak. She's been very patient. So and there you go after, Cassie.
Thank you. So absolutely, and I think the sooner these, the sooner we can get it open, is the better. With the I hate saying disabled loos, it always just seems there's something wrong with the loo. The accessible loos that we've got already, do they have an alarm pull in them anyway already? That now put in.
Yes, I believe they do. The actual normal accessible toilets are outside of the scope of this. This is one of the things I've had to get my head around is we're not talking about all disabled people when we're talking about changing places facilities.
No, I'm just it's about, you were saying about the fire procedures, alarms and signing. Yeah. It's about who already maintains the pull cord. Yeah, so obviously it's using that expertise around.
Yes, as we're bringing each of the new toilets on stream, then we're obviously working out what fire alarms we need in them, and what emergency provisions we need to provide. So yes, that's been done for Cannon Street. We're in the process of doing that for Paul.
So you can apply the similar sort of things anyway too.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think the requirement is the requirement in respect of emergency alarms in relation to changing places toilets is probably slightly greater than it may be in respect to our normal toilets, because by very nature of the fact that the users are going to be severely disabled, clearly if they encounter a problem, then if that's a potential medical issue, then we need to make sure that the response to that is both very quick, but also by the appropriate agency, because one of the issues we have is that actually our staff, if they're locked in the toilet and they just need help getting out, then yes, we can deal with that because our staff can unlock the door. But pretty much anything else, if medical or if they've had a fall, well, our staff are not trained and consequently we're not insured, and the change in places advice says this, we should not go anywhere near picking people up. So
no, I think if that happens, you would do as any other would do. Yeah. It's just call for assistance, and I think it's that delicate balance. And I think you'll probably find if you when you do your surveys, I've got a young man with cerebral palsy, so my life has been around disability, slightly different because it doesn't use hoists. Otherwise, I could sort of probably be quite helpful with this, but the same thing still, he still uses accessible loos. He has used changing places facilities at motorway services, and they have their key within one of the shops. I understand Nine Springs in the Oval have got a changing place facility. It might be worth getting in touch with them to see how they meet the similar things, because I think, as you say, there's different councils, but it's just getting that experience, isn't it? And I think there's a danger And we all know there's risks, we all know that risk assessment, but there's danger of slightly overcomplicating things when actually at the end of the day, all mums and carers and anybody want is somewhere to go with, if they need the loo. And I think, sometimes you are hamstrung by red tape and bureaucracy when actually there is usually a straightforward solution to it. Now, I get it completely, I do, that we as a town council have to manage those risks, but I think it's trying not to do it where we're overcomplicating things when it doesn't need to be.
No, I fully appreciate that, and I think my feeling is that we are working towards solutions that hopefully will be comparatively simple to use. One of the huge advantages we've got is that I've had a very positive conversation with the helpline manager at Somerset Council. Actually, they're prepared for a very small amount of money per year to actually allow us to tap into their service, to actually have their telephonists engage in dealing with people contacting from those toilets, potentially both around access, but also crucially potentially in relation to alarms. Now, it's still early days in terms of talking to them, but actually, if we can access that service at an affordable price, very conscious of the fact that the officers in that service are specialists in terms of dealing with people, where they've experienced falls and various other medical issues. So that I potentially provides us actually with a quite simple solution to quite a number of the issues we've got. But again, I don't want to just go ahead and implement that. We need to, I think, run these sorts of options by some potential users to get their thoughts on this.
Yeah, no, I do agree with Councillor Fernandez. So I mean, the main thing is, can you go to the loo? And is it easy? Is it easy? I know there's, other stuff about health and safety, about, do they know how to use it and all that. But I think at the end of the day, the objective is equality, isn't it? So, if I want to go to the toilet, I don't have to ring somebody up and get a key code. I don't know, but this is what it's good that we're engaging, because we need to sense test our assumptions. We have different assumptions, and we need to sense test them quite widely. So my own little bias would be, I just want to go to the loo. I just want to get in there and use the toilet. And I'm thinking, I would be in favour of more regular checks, just like basic human people going and looking and checking on the facilities to check they haven't been trashed. The most basic thing of, by the way, you're meant to know how to use this, otherwise you shouldn't be using it if you're a carer or whatever. And that's it. And let people use it and just keep, So, but we'll see what people say, won't we?
Yeah. Well, I think we'll draw this to a close, because I think we're all of like mind here. Oh. Oh yes, sorry. I thought you had jumped in, so
That's all right. Yes, no, if we do find someone who does want to contribute to the sort of review of this, is it what's the best contact for it? Is it your town council email, or is it?
Yeah, please point them in my direction.
Okay, thank you.
I think my email hopefully is on here. So,
and I'm assuming you've been to Sir Worthy School.
yeah, I think we were trying to get in contact with them as well. So it's quite a number of organisations.
Yes, I think. Well, my question was going to be looking at the risk assessment, or looking at your research about the councils, which seem to do a mixture of radar keys and security checks. I was wondering if you've started to narrow down as to what we would use as a method of access and keeping those.
Well, I think
access to those who would use.
Yeah, I mean, again, yes, I've got ideas, but I think, you'll see in the questionnaire that we've kind of set the kind of three main options here. We're kind of putting out to users to say which is your preferred option. However, I mean, we have included just radar keys on there, but the learning point from talking to other councils is that yes, whilst some do rely on just radar keys, most appear to be moving away from it, because they simply, the problem is you can buy them on Amazon. And I was talking to one of our operations officers today who was saying that actually they went to clean one of the Cannon Street toilets the other day and found 6 people sat in there in a group taking drugs. And I'm just very conscious of the fact we're changing places facilities, particularly when the weather gets cold. It's a nice bed for the night, and we know that people that haven't shouldn't have radar keys. I've got them. The health and safety officer, when he visited the bus station, had a taxi driver tap him on the shoulder and say, "When's this opening, mate? Because I like to use this rather than having to go over there to the toilet." So, you know, I think we put it on the list, but that's why I'm very keen to actually understand, and, you know, particularly with a focus group, to understand actually, you know, is your priority when you go to these toilets actually being able to get into them very easily, or when you actually get access to them, being certain that, you know, sure you can be, that they are going to be clean, safe and healthy to use, because well, we can't necessarily have both things without chucking a hell of a lot of money at managing the facilities.
Right, so before we vote, I've just noticed looking at the forward plan, is it worth Richard comes back in January to update us? That gives you another 2 months. Yeah, yeah. I mean, or was Richard going to be on there anyway after the meeting?
Well, I can do. I'm not currently.
No, well, I mean, as members, we'd be like Richard to come back and give us an update in January, which is when we next meet.
It was not too much bother for Richard, sure. It would be good if there's something,
Yeah.
you know, there probably will be something to report by then, won't there? Because
Even if it's just a brief update.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think
brief
so.
update.
Yeah, Richard, if you're happy to come back, Jen, we can add that to the forward plan. Yeah, for January. Great, lovely, thank you. So, yeah, I think we're all pretty much like-minded here, aren't we? We noted the progress and conclusions. We had to instruct officers to complete the work required to, and we need to allocate funding from the public convenience improvements budget 6702/490 of up to £8,300 to cover the one-off cost details in Appendix 1 and to help Richard and his team carry on with the works. I'm happy to propose all of that as it is written. And I just have to second it. All those in favour? That's passed unanimously. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, Richard. So, one update to another. We're now on to the Hall Street variances, and this is to note some of the decisions and changes that have been made. Paul, are you able to summarise what's happened so far? Richard, sorry. Didn't I say Paul?
You can call the toilets Richard if you want.
Oh, Paul. It's Paul Street.
Rename them if you want. I don't mind. So,
Yeah.
okay, again, I'll just very quickly run you through the background to this. So the report essentially does two things, which is gives you the background to a decision that we had to take to actually reduce the number of accessible toilets at Paul Street refurbishment from 3 to 2, and also gives you an update in terms of the budget and where we're at with that. In general terms, actually, the refurbishment is making pretty good progress. We're slightly behind the original schedule, and you'll understand some of the reasons for that as I go through this. It is, as a project, we're actually going at a fair pace, which is, I think, is certainly helping to keep the cost of the overall construction down. We did, as it says in the report, we've encountered problems with the floor levels, both inside and outside. If anyone's actually been past Paul Street, you'll note that actually the levels outside to a certain extent are all over the place. Well, unfortunately, we weren't able to pre-identify those problems because we were unable to get into some of the units because essentially they'd been jammed shut. So it's only when the work could commence they could actually unjam them and we could see it. Specifically, the right hand unit actually faced towards the car park. The floor inside that unit is essentially too high in comparison to the paving outside. So to have resolved that, we would have essentially had to actually do some quite extensive works outside to build both a ramp and then a balustrade to stop people from tripping over the ramp. The problem we have is that all of the land outside the toilets is Somerset's and not ours. They were not keen on us building the balustrade. It was becoming quite apparent actually that whilst we could have plugged away at trying to make that happen, it was going to cause a huge delay. Well, we got both the necessary permissions from Somerset and potentially planning permission to do that work as well. So that the works themselves would have cost in the region of £4,000, but actually the indirect cost of having to postpone the wider works while we got that permission would have been significant. So consequently, we got to the point where we'd had to take the operational decision actually to redesignate that one as a non-accessible unit, albeit that we've kitted that house as accessible. So if at some point in the future we are able to undertake those works, then we can quite quickly make it an accessible unit. We also had problems with the left-hand unit as well, if you face it, which is the changing places facility. The problem in that instance was that actually there was not sufficient height between the floor and the ceiling to allow clearance for the hoists. We couldn't go up because we would be hacking into the main supports of the roof, and I didn't particularly want to bring a corner of the multi-storey down on our house. So we had to go down. The problem is once we started digging down in the floor, that also necessitated us actually having to sort something outside those toilets as well. So there was a delay whilst we worked out what we were going to do, but essentially what we had to do there was redo the paving outside the changing places toilet, which actually sounds easy, but it runs in a kind of lovely wavy pattern. So that was not easy to do. But we had to proceed with that piece of work, otherwise we would not have had a changing places unit there. In terms of the overall budget position, and I would stress that this is the current position, the works are ongoing, so things will change. There are likely to be a few small further variances. At the present time, certainly 12th of November, when the report was compiled, we were 5.11% over budget, which equates to approximately £7,625. Now that's over budget in terms of the original contracted price. There is sufficient capacity within the budget that was allowed for toilet refurbishments for the year to actually absorb that. As I say, the project is ongoing, so we will, when it completes, actually bring a full final account essentially of the spend and changes to full council at that point, just to report on the overall position. So essentially the recommendations here are to both note that decision to designate that right-hand unit as being non-accessible, note the decision to take the additional groundworks in respect to the left-hand unit, and note essentially the increase in costs at this point. And again, I'm happy to take questions.
Well, thank you very much, Richard. My other question actually was given the fact that we had to dig down on the floor level on the changing places, could we have not have also dug down on the other one at the same time so that they were both level?
Yeah, I can't remember. We looked at that, I think, and I can't remember the reason why, but there was a technical reason why that wasn't going to be particularly feasible. I'm sorry, I can't remember precisely what it was, but we did spend quite a bit of time on site actually looking around, and in fact we had the quantity surveyors on there actually looking in detail at this and producing a number of options for us, and for some reason I don't think that was an option in that unit.
Yeah, imagine this is a sensible approach. I think, you know, we like there's a saying, let not the best be the enemy of the good, and this is what we can deliver at this time, and it's already, you know, 2 accessible cubicles, and there will be also the changing places facility. So And we can, you know, sort the other accessible thing out later because it'll all be fitted out. It's just a question of ground level. So I'm perfectly happy with this. What's your best estimate now, Richard? I'm literally desperate to know when you anticipate now that the loos will be open.
Well, the revised completion date that the contractors are working to is Friday, the 12th of December. But I do have to say that there are a couple of factors still that we're working on, so such as the fire doors, for instance, in the rear of it, where we need to make sure we've got adequate provision in place. So I would say provisional date still for this is Friday the 12th of December. But you know, as with all of these construction projects, particularly when you're old buildings, there can be some things that can trip you up. We do site visits weekly, so we were over there this morning. What we've said is we'll take stock in terms of where we are next week, because we should have a much better view in terms of when we think you know, if there's anything at that point that's likely still to hold us up. But you know, there are various assessments, so we have to have a fire risk assessment done, we have to have a Legionella assessment done. You know, obviously those you need to be advanced to a certain stage with the build before you can actually have those assessments undertaken meaningfully. So I'm conscious, you know, we're running up to Christmas, we need to get those in quickly, but we also need to get the results from them. Sorry, that's not a more definite answer, but it's unfortunately is part of the joy of renovating buildings, I'm afraid.
Right, are there any other questions from members? Well, we're just noting everything that Richard said, so we don't need to vote on this, do we? No, okay, well, thank you very much for updating on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I look forward to December the 12th.
Yes, or a bit later, depending.
Get them there.
Well, if we-
Let's go over.
Can I make a plug, Chair? Because actually, if we do take possession back on December 12th, then we are plugging in, hopefully for the latter part of the following week, we are in the process of arranging an opening ceremony, to which you're more than welcome to come up.
Yeah.
Yeah, see you around the block.
We'll go from there. Great, lovely, thank you very much, Richard. Right, item number 9. We are coming to look at Bridge Street. We've returned to Bridge Street and looking at the mural, placing a mural, sorry, I keep calling it a mural, and
Muriel?
yeah.
I never know.
So the mural on the side of the building on the plot of land that we have acquired on the corner of Bridge Street and Middle Way, isn't it? Tangier.
On the corner.
Yeah.
On the corner,
Yes.
yeah.
So, Marcus, did you want to?
Brief introduction.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So obviously, this committee has been aware that we've acquired this corner plot of land and approved and agreed that it could be transformed into a community space pocket park for amenities such as planters, benches and bike racks. Since then, the site holding has been resecured, but over the past weekend we have had someone make a big hole, unfortunately, again in it. But positive news is that we have liaised with the Highways Authority, and on the 17th of December there will be TTC branded terrace fencing going up, so people will be able to walk past and see that there is progress on that site. It's a Taunton Town Council asset, and yeah, we hope to be able to progress the other elements of it fairly swiftly. At the last meeting, there was discussion around a potential advertising billboard, but you as members gave a steer that that was not something that you wished to do. There was then mention of a potential mural on the site, and then following that, I heard about a grant opportunity that's been explored. We had to move at speed as part of this Abby Harris Mural Fund. There's a requirement for an artist to be identified, a design concept. So we met quickly with Sam Gaden of Verisol Art, actually very well known across the town, has done a number of mural pieces of work, most recently obviously in the Taunton Independent Quarter. So we went ahead and submitted an application to the grant pot because there was a deadline that we had to meet. And unfortunately, we weren't successful with that. And yeah, they did give some feedback. They only supported one out of nearly 80 proposals. So it was always a bit of a long shot, I suppose, if they had quite limited funds. But so that's just to update members really on the application that we made. I mean, we did come up with a sort of design concept with Sam as to what we thought might be more appropriate. You know, a peacock. At 2.9, it says that the proposed mural would have a peacock design, which is obviously the animal that features on the coat of arms at Taunton. It holds cultural significance to Taunton, having been a symbol for the town for over 800 years. So there is the potential that the council could seek to use a different budget pot. Obviously, we haven't been able to secure grant funding. We have one quote today so far, which says that it's around about £9,300. With our financial regulations, for a spend of that type, we would need to go and get 3 quotes. And so it's not necessarily that we will use Sam Gaydon and Aerosol art for this. I think I suggested in my report that we seek to get a sketch brief for the purposes of public consultation from 3 artists, and then put that to sort of a public vote if you're minded to support the use of the budget, the town centre improvements budget, which hasn't been utilised very much this year at all. If that was something that you would be supportive of doing. So obviously the recommendations there, Chair, are to note the unsuccessful outcome, to approve the proposed design concept, to delegate to officers to seek to obtain further design briefs and quotations in line with our financial regulations and run that public consultation exercise. I think the one thing I missed out in the timeline at 2.10 is that obviously that budget line is a communities and place budget line and not a operations and assets committee budget line. So I wouldn't want you to presume to use other committees budget pots. So I'm suggesting perhaps it might be easier or politic for it to go to either that committee or full council following tonight's. So in that timeline somewhere before we would go and appoint a chosen artist and approve all this, it would need to go to Council Fernandez's committee, if that's right. But I'm just taking any questions. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Oh, Councillor Fernandez. Is this going to be hands up my pot?
I mean, I had a chat with Service Lead Craig today about this. So obviously this sort of came as a bit of a surprise. I thought, oh, okay. Now I do understand, because obviously the town centre improvements, whenever we commit in place, oh yeah, there's plenty of money left and plenty of funds left. A couple of the things that we were looking at have actually sort of aren't going to come to fruition. So there is money in there, but I did actually say that I would recommend that this comes to committee in place committee first for our discussion and our approval before that decision is made. Thank you.
Are there any other comments, Councillor Ellis?
Yeah, very excited about getting a mural on there, because I just think, yeah, it's a great spot and we do need to do some serious placemaking, and Taunton is getting a bit of a name for amazing street art. We should be a street art destination. So I'm really keen on this, but I think that we would be able to, if it's going to eventually, with the money would come out of community in place, and it really needs to be decided by community in place.
Yeah.
That's the firm.
Can we include defenders there as well, just as a
You think the what, sir?
defenders, the
That's
that slogan?
Okay.
It's the motto.
Just as an aside, I'm always a bit wary being over specific with artists. They have to have their creative what have yous. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what could you come up with that being, you know, peacocky related? About, yeah, I mean, could include different artists, but I don't think it's over prescriptive.
I think so. Yes, so I have to say, so I mean, obviously we're just noting the unsuccessful outcome. That's very much a shame, but one does understand. There's a lot of people. They have 80 applicants and they can get awarded one. You know, chances are we had slim chances. I'm a bit confused by recommendation 2 and 3, because it's to approve the proposed peacock design and then delegate further design briefs. So I have to say I'm a bit wary of peacock design. I mean, are we looking at as literally as the town logo, or are we just wanting a mural with a peacock in it, or? But I just wonder if you can clarify, we've got approved the design of a peacock or peacock design, and then delegate to find further design briefs or designs. So,
Yeah, thank you, John. Happy to come back on that. I guess, yeah, the thing that we submitted for the Abbey Harris Mural Fund was a design concept of the peacock design. But if that's something that you as councillors think is way off base, it wouldn't just be like the town council logo or the historic mayoral.
Yeah.
That's just reproduced in giant form. I think it would
Yeah.
have some sort of artistic. And then, yeah, to delegate the officers is to go out and get those further quotations, talk to local artists, and get the, I think I say in there about a sketch design brief. So if we look at those and they don't quite hit the mark, then we wouldn't perhaps go out to consultation and can always bring it back. But as a broad headline, I want to be able to go to those artists and say it's a peacock design, it's the history of Taunton, etc., etc. But if you think actually that there's something else, or you just want to leave it open and let the artists decide,
well, and I don't know if anyone saw Points West a couple of weeks ago. Mural. Did anyone see that? There's a 94-year-old lady living up in Green, and they got an artist and they painted the side of a house with like a garden with trees, and it was absolutely lovely, really lovely. And I think, given that we're going to develop that area into a bit of a green space, that this lady's willing to have that house painted, the side painting, perhaps something a bit more garden-like, garden town-like, can have peacocks, doesn't that? Right, well, who called my first? Councillor Fernandez, because Councillor Fernandez.
Thanks, Chair. No, I think I agree, and I think we could perhaps change the wording a little bit to say approve of a proposed design peacock. I mean, we could sort of say incorporating a peacock, but I think any design would have to come back here, and public consultation, so on, whatever it is, so it's not just a foregone conclusion. And if I don't say this now, I'll forget, but we'll need to amend resolution 4 when we come on to it. So yeah, so have this discussion and come back to it.
Councillor.
Yeah, I'm in favour of a bit of artistic leeway, because somebody might come up with a better idea. And it could be, something that reflects the town's history, the place, all of that.
Oh yeah.
So that could be quite, and our state as a garden town. So it's quite broad, and then you can pick something out of that. So you're not necessarily constrained. But I think I'm confused about what we're going to resolve. So we can definitely note the unsuccessful outcome of the grant application. I don't think we're approving a specific design concept. Are we saying that we're very, very keen on the idea, but it needs to be more work done, it needs to come to community in place to take forward?
I think so. I think recommendation 4 needs to be scrubbed, I think, and that we pass this on to community in place. But whatever we decide here is now passed on to community in place.
Before we even do a consultation or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could do something about we're thinking of doing, but can we do these sort of light touch things where we're saying we've taken on this corner, what would you like to see? We are thinking, I wouldn't just do it about a mural, I would maybe do it about the corner, saying what we're thinking of doing, would you like to give us your input? And then, I mean, I don't know whether there are other pots that do murals or whatever, but then you would at least be able to say, if there was, be able to, I think they should be quick. I don't think they should be like strung out over, a long period of time, but maybe just something simple about, we've got this little corner, it's been an absolute mess for ages. We're going to, the fencing is going to go up soon, then we're going to clear it all out, and we're going to have, amenities there. So you'll be able to, there's an extra bike rack, and ask people, not a great long thing. And we're thinking of, getting a local artist, having a little mini competition with a local artist to do a mural or whatever. Something about theme of history, Taunton, placemaking, garden town, and just to kind of get buy-in a bit for that. Could do that.
Okay, I suppose off the table is being able to go for a digital display where we can change the artwork regularly.
The digital is the
because that'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? Then you can always have any design comes forward, puts up at that point.
I think that could be problematic with planning.
digital, I think there was a long, I seem to remember in the dim and distant past that there was sort of some, a planning application came in, didn't it, for a digital thing on that particular thing. And I think at the time
Yes, I think it had.
we were, it didn't go through planning.
Yeah.
Didn't get through planning at Somerset Council.
Well, I think we're happy that we want something to go up on that wall. And at the moment, we're looking at murals. But item 4, recommendation 4 is we can't send it straight to full council. It's got to go to community in place. So, so I think, yes, we have noted the unsuccessful attempt. Recommendation 2 and 3, I think we're scrubbed, and that we're still in discussion as to what the pitch would be. A mixture between artist concept and council-led vision. And the last item is that actually this has to go to community in place because it's coming out of their funds.
I was just going to say, just amend that the resolution.
Because we know we've been unsuccessful anyway. It says if unsuccessful.
So it's just amending that resolution at the end.
Yeah. So recommendation. Yes, I mean, I'm happy with recommendation 2 and 3. They're not. They seem very conflicting.
I think, yeah, I'm happy for you to scrub them, and I'll just I'll bring some details to community in place on the consultation.
Yeah.
Questions and go from there. If you're happy with it.
Right, so we have recommendation 1 to note that successful outcome of the application. That's fine. And then the next recommendation is that we have agreed that this should be passed to community in place. You written that down? Okay. Great.
Is that for the proposed design come to community in place, or does
Yes.
that, okay?
Oh,
No, it comes here.
no, I think the proposed design of the
We can't have 2 committees
No,
without
you
it
can't.
on something like this. It needs to be just one.
Well, I have a feeling the design will probably end up having to go to full council because
Oh, you're kidding me.
the full council have to have the final say because it's coming from an earmark
No, it's
No.
from this year's budget.
No,
from this
from this year's budget, yeah.
so they won't have to go to full council.
I would suggest community in place, given the time scales if that's okay.
Yeah.
And they're paying for it, so.
Yeah. Well, go to community in place, and we can invite members from this committee to join,
Yeah.
because Councillor Berman, you're not on the community in place, are you?
Yes, if we're going to fund it, yeah, it does make.
Yes, but you'll be welcome to come to that community in place.
Now the design, every councillor as well. So
Yeah.
do it by email, so it's not.
Okay. Right.
So
So I propose those 2 recommendations. It is just 2 now. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. All those in favour? Great, lovely, thank you. Right, item number 10. Sorry, Simon, you probably didn't realise it was going to say so.
I did.
Oh, did you?
I did. I was still going.
We need to do that
Okay.
open spaces first. Right, so we have now again, I feel that it's not for us to recommend to full council of the project. I think it has to go through finance and governance first, doesn't it? As a policy, surely. Yeah, so I think we do need to amend recommendation 2, pass any recommendations forward to finance and governance. So whatever we talk about now, if we come up with things that we feel need to be added or changed, then we pass those on to finance and governance to consider. The recommendation 2 is to recommend to pass on any recommendations to the finance and governance committee. Other than that, I think we're okay. Yes, so Marcus, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And obviously at the last meeting of the Operations and Assets Committee, there was discussion about some land parcels that were requested to come forward from Councillor Frascini. As part of that, I think it's recognised that councillors want to the policy that would guide decision making in this framework. an area. So that's what we've gone away and done and drafted a policy for your consideration that will run to 2028. As I say, the report gives a bit of a background, some of which Simon Fox touched on in his opening remarks around those national concerns around the operation of private management companies. I believe even Taunton's MP has spoken about this recently in Parliament as well. So there's lots of, it's a high profile issue as the landscape has sort of changed. 2.3, as I say, sort of historically public open space in new housing developments in Taunton were handed over to the former district council. But in the last 10 years or so, that has councils have withdrawn from wishing to adopt new public open space because of cost and resource pressures. And so developers have had to transfer public open space to management companies instead, which is sort of the default model. There's a bit of background in there. Obviously, some of these things that came into place before Taunton Town Council existed. It was designated as a garden town with an ambition to deliver up to 13,000 new homes by 2028. There was a garden town vision, which was published in 2019 to guide and influence development management decisions. It makes specific reference to stewardship principles, which are outlined in the report. Key in there at 2.7 is that it's important to note that developers are under no obligation or cannot be forced by any council to offer up new public open space to adopt. Existing public open space run by management companies may be difficult legally for them to be transferred from a management company to the town council, and indeed a variation to the relevant section 106 agreements would be required. So I think that's where Simon referred to, you get that sort of early opportunity to influence, which is what the stewardship working group has been looking at over the last couple of years. I think you mentioned, Chair, earlier about in the deeds, so at 2.9, it says residents will have signed a legally binding agreement when they purchase their properties, which will run with the property in perpetuity. And I think I put in there at 2.10 about some of the remarks that Simon's touched on around you could look to subsidise management costs with a precept if you so wish, and precept and SIL contributions which the town council receives from these new estates being built out could also be used to invest and improve community facilities with new play equipment, etc. 2.11 sets out sort of what the policy is aiming to achieve, so a clear and consistent framework for assessing whether public open space should be adopted by the town council, ensuring transparency for developers, residents and members, clear standards, the council's proactive approach to early engagement with developers, strengthen due diligence requirements, requiring developers to fund long-term maintenance through appropriate commuted sums, so normally 15 years, ensuring no unfunded liabilities fall onto the taxpayer, clarify when adoption is not appropriate, strengthen governance and officer delegation, improve fairness and equity for residents, and support the delivery of the garden town vision. There are a number of risks highlighted in the report 6, which I'll draw your attention to. I'm happy to take any questions on those. Okay, happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you, Marcus. So we have a policy. I have to say it's this meeting or leading up to the meeting, but I came across this policy as a committee and as an operational asset. We haven't been part of the development of this policy, and so just going through the policy, I think we've all read this policy. I was I had a few questions. I can just start off with this first one. I noticed when assessing whether land is suitable for adoption, the council will also consider size. Very small or isolated parcels such as local areas or play LEPs may not sufficiently community benefit to just adoption. I was wondering whether under this policy we would have adopted Greenbrook Terrace and that small patch of land from Bridge Street and Tangier Way if we were operating this policy? My question. Sorry.
Yes, that's something to consider, isn't it? I wouldn't say that they're isolated parcels or, you know, in terms of community benefit. I think the intention is to turn one of them into a community allotment, isn't it? But I'm not here to defend those decisions necessarily, but yeah, that's potentially something to consider.
The question of size seems a bit ridiculous there, and it almost implies that if it's too small, we won't bother. Whereas actually, fact, we've taken on 2 pieces of land,
It's large.
which again, which we want to do quite positive things with. So, and also, my other question was how are the policy principles objectively assessed? So we're offered a piece of land. How do we go about objectively assessing whether or not we should take it on by the policy? Is there a scoring matrix that we're developing?
I think the policy sets out a number of adoption pathways, and there are a number of principles. So there's policy principles that are there at number 4 around community benefit, financial sustainability, environmental stewardship. So I think they would be assessed against all of those principles. And then you look at the various different pathways which would offer protection to the taxpayer. And then
but I'm assuming these objective criteria as to whether they're meeting some of those requirements, of course, from the wherever they. Small screen. Yeah, so how would we gauge community benefit or financial sustainability? Would we develop a set of criteria that we mark something against so that it's objective?
I think we bring forward a report for members as part of the decision-making process that would take into account those principles. I think that says in there about Appendix A, develop the land adoption checklist as well, which we would expect to be hitting all of those marks. If it's Somerset Council's Appendix B is different criteria there as well.
There's something I think would be worth considering developing alongside this.
Okay.
Councillor,
the one thing occurred to me when I was reading this, I can't find the exact place now, but I don't know, when assessing whether land is suitable for adoption, what about community views, community feeling? You talk about community benefit, but are the views of the community kind of relevant as well? And isn't that a key factor? Like they might be quite happy, you know, I don't know, they might be quite happy for some existing arrangements, or they might be desperate, absolutely desperate. And surely that's what our residents think and feel and believe is relevant. I can't find the actual bit. I've got a funny feeling. I don't know what I'm looking at here. Maybe there's 2 bits of it. Anyway, I just read whatever it was I was reading. I just suddenly, that's something that jumped out at me. And then it says something about free governance of the local authority controlled management company may include community representation. I thought, shouldn't that be should it? I mean, does that not? I mean, you would think it would, wouldn't you? I don't know why it was saying may. I don't know what I'm looking at now, because the thing I was looking at before, I can't find the same bit.
Number 4, policy principles.
Don't know what I'm
Page.
looking at.
Yeah. 9. Got it under as well.
Yeah. Number 4, I think, Carol, on the policy principles.
transparency and accountability.
Community benefit, demonstrable benefit to residents and local
Yes.
communities.
Again, I'd like to see some objective evidence in that as well. Marcus,
Yeah, sorry, under 9, legal, financial and risk management framework, I think it says that the governance structure includes council representation and may include resident or community representation where appropriate. Happy to look at strengthening that wording if that's the committee.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a bit.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it should, but also you might have an argument about community benefit, but that's in the eye of, you know, whoever's looking at this policy, but then residents' views are slightly different to that, aren't they? I think that's an additional aspect.
I mean, I guess if you're talking about land adoption, say Orchard Grove, I'm not sure how many residents there are around there. Quite a few.
Quite a lot.
Well, I guess that's your sweet point, isn't it? Who are you consulting? Are you consulting people on an emerging plan that don't live on the site, who may have different vested interests than those living on the site? And at the moment, Orchard Grove's got about 200, 300 occupations. So you'd say that's a fairly good pool of people.
I'm afraid that.
Oh,
I
very
think that's
specific.
a first- We have to do that.
You could, yeah.
Suspend, thank you. Is my- learned how to speak. So, now I'm happy to let you speak, but we will have to suspend standing orders. So if we just go around the councillors first, aren't there? You can. Councillor Fern?
Yes, just on that, I'm thinking within the founding document of this council-owned company, you can make it that the community is a stakeholder, therefore you should be consulted.
So this is like our formal policy, isn't it? We're being asked, well, okay, finance and gov are going to get another shot at it. So this is our policy. So I think this word should be, where it was talking about the lackmux thing, it should be more like should. I believe. I don't know. And there's something policy principles. I don't know, something about aspirations of local residents. I don't know what doesn't seem to be quite in there. I don't know how you capture that, sorry.
Well, it's what I certainly think residents' views need to be taken. Because if they're part of a manco at the moment, they're going to have a view.
Yeah.
Get us out.
And I don't think we should be making a decision on their behalf of not consulting them at all. So yes, I'm with you there. And actually, if it's a case of, oh, if you're taking this on land, so we become your manco as opposed to this person, again, I don't think we should be doing that to the residents. I think they should be part of that. They might be very happy with their private manco, but we know might think might have shares in that manco. So I do agree. I think we need to tighten that up. So where was that paragraph that you were wanting to tighten up?
Well, we've done the one about the specific bit about the company, local authority thingy-be-doing, but I guess it's policy principles.
Yeah.
Can we just,
Policy, yes.
yeah,
It was under
Yes.
split
9.
up?
Which one?
Under 9, the last point where LACMC is
Yeah.
established. And the last point, the governance structure includes council representation, may include resident or community representation where appropriate.
I'm sorry, you the page number you want.
Oh, page 7.
Page 7. Oh yes, includes yes. Yeah, and may include, yes, right, the governance structure includes council representation, and should include, that's what you were wanting to change it to, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know how these things work, but it would seem a bit weird not to have. I think should, I guess, because it must, and nobody wants to be on it, that would be a bit silly, but should.
Conditional, isn't it? Unlike, isn't it? Because you should are still conditional, as can and would are less conditional.
May is definitely,
May
May sounds like, oh, we're not quite sure, we just will let them on.
No. I think I will bring you at some point, Sam. So do you have some responses to
silent, what
everything
he
we're talking about? So just make little notes of them. Yeah, so I think should, because it's
You said about a scoring check.
I think we do, because otherwise, we've got to be objective. We've got one plus friend here and another plus friend the other side of the town. You want to make sure that they're being taken on an equal footing, and they're not saying no to one when they could come back and argue, well, you said no to us, but you let them have it. And we go, well, no, it was all a bit touchy feely, well, that kind of, we wouldn't want to be in that situation.
It's getting near 8 o'clock.
It is. Thank
Oh,
you
it's
very
getting twitchy.
much. Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, I'm just a bit thinking about, is there scenarios where this commuted sun malarkey ain't gonna happen, and yet there's a burning need for us to step in? So would this policy preclude us, because it said, oh, if we don't have the money to run this for 20 to 30 years, we can't do it because of our policy, when actually there's probably an overwhelming public interest in us just saying, well, sort that, we need to save these poor people and we need to sort it out.
I've got to
What's
say,
the
when I
position there?
muted this, I thought, sorry, we go to a developer and we say, like, you pay us 15 years worth of maintenance and we're taking this off you. How does that work?
It doesn't, does it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We do need to extend our time. You're proposing this?
Yep.
I'll second.
You're second that, because actually I think it's going to be quite a good discussion.
I'll second.
Is that
Right.
you're wanting a, should we
2 minutes.
should we try and finish up this one? Have a break, because I'm conscious, because I think we're mid discussion here. Okay, all those in favour? Lovely. Yes, okay, so we do that, because I've got just a few other things I was thinking, like, if you go to page 5, there's one, I'm trying to think, 0.6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Can you just add on as commuted something?
Yeah.
So, Chair, I was just going to say on community something. I think I had looked at the town councils and they've got similar sort of policies and principles in there. I think Chippenham have recently taken something through, but as you say, there are different pathways in the policy. I have spoken to Simon about it. You know, in some of the estates, it won't be possible to get a 15-year commuted sum possibly because there are legal agreements already signed and in place. So that's where you could potentially be looking at the local authority controlled Manco. But I think as a principle and a basis, we're really keen to ensure that the town council doesn't take on, you know, unfunded liabilities. It adds to the precept, and we're aware as a council that we don't have significant income generating assets, so that every time you take on something, it will add an increase to the precept. Unless, and then the advantage with perhaps having a local authority Manco where it's supported somewhat with the precept is that you're getting some of that money back, so it's less of a hit on the precept, but then you're having a greater control and support for, as you say, for the local residents in the area. But maybe Simon can expand more on.
Yes, because one thing I was going to suggest is that yes, us being a Manco might be the nicest way of doing this, but it's still applying a separate precept to those residents that live in that area, which Mr. Fox was alluding possibly wasn't the fairest way. And I was sitting there thinking, well, yes, we could do that, because the notice, of course, that the idea that they've got to pay something to a Manco is part of their deed. But we take on one LACMAC and we take on a piece of land and we are running it and we are charging precept. After 20 years, can we really consider that open space now not to be part of the town? I mean, after 5 years, possibly, but when it's going to 10 years, 15 years, people moving to Taunton, they're not going to know that this piece of land was originally part of a separate development and was added. They're just going to see this is part of town now. I mean, like Staplegrove, that's after 20 years, surely it becomes part of town. And should we have a finite time that these elements operate for on these areas, and actually slowly over the years, less is passed on to the residents and more is taken on precept? Because again, after 20 years, 30 years, at what point is this open space a separate part of the town? Surely by that point, it is part of the town. Did you understand that?
Yeah, and just briefly, I guess I would, part of my thinking as well is that some of these things aren't open spaces in the traditional, you know, there are certain things that, whereas some of the assets will be, like you say, destination parks and things that people from different areas will visit and use, but some of it will be sort of bespoke bits of estate that serve the residents that live in that estate. Would be perhaps a slight counter argument, but yeah, I'm happy to take any of the thoughts on it.
Councillor Fairman, you have your hands up.
Yes, I was just going to agree with you. I think, as I say, after a time, I think it should just go directly to the council and be precepted.
Yeah, and actually, perhaps to begin with, because we can't take the hit on our precept, but actually there should be something in our policy that says, well, actually the amount of additional precept to that resident as opposed to the town precept starts to diminish, and it slowly transfers over a period of time.
More people will be moving into those houses. So.
Yeah. So yes, I was just wanting to make a note on one of the things is any resident. This is page 5. It says any resident charges must be fair, proportionate, and demonstrably linked to the actual cost of maintenance if we're running a LACMAC. I was wondering whether really we should make the assertion that the council's LACMAC is not for profit. That'd be the easiest way of saying, or identifying it's not for profit, that it literally just covers the costs. And also wondering, would we ever be able to adopt land that we could lease? So we might not think it's best interest, but actually we could see as an opportunity to lease to other groups. That covered in, I didn't see that being covered in the policy.
Please take that away. I guess you would still have to transfer the ownership of it, and then if you as a council decided, like with the allotment sites, and if you then thought actually we don't want to run this ourselves directly, but and it'd be an allotment association that could set itself up.
Yeah.
You can always make subsequent legal agreements post adoption.
So yes, I'm wondering if to the policy there's things we could add about adopting land which council might want to lease, because it's way of taking it on, but not actually adding to the precept. Councillor Foley?
With that idea, if those companies do make profit, where would that go as such? Would it go back to the council, or?
Well, if we've taken on that land, I guess so.
Yeah.
Right. So, Councillor Ellis is going to want a break, so we will need to suspend standing orders for that to happen. In which case, we do have Simon Fox. He is a planner. He has worked on all the estates around here, from Staple Grove, Commage Road, and London. I think it would be remiss not to have his views on what we've just discussed.
So I'll keep going if you guys want to keep.
But no, I think it's sorry. It's just a. If there's anything we said, you think because I mean you're the expert in the room, really. Yeah.
I've gained an understanding of the process over the last 10-15 years dealing with major sites in South Somerset and now latterly in Taunton. So a lot of my time and effort has been expended in trying to set these sites up in a more fair and equitable way, because the default has been to go into private mancos, and I've seen the results of that as district councils have withdrawn their general intention to adopt open spaces in the traditional sense with commuted sums. And it was really the commuted sum bit within 211 that I did want to just comment on, because whilst I can absolutely understand the intention to try and insulate yourselves fully in terms of those costs over as long a period as you can achieve, the reality is that we're talking about quite significant sums of money over those periods. And the problem is, as those who also sit on Somerset Council's planning committee will know, is that economic viability is now particularly acute in bringing sites forward. And the whole reason why this rush to private mancos has accelerated is A, the withdrawal of district councils from adopting, but also B, the costs within viability appraisals of earmarking a large sum of money if you could find someone to adopt it who might be a town or parish. And what that ultimately means in the general carve up of economic viability is you lose affordable housing, or you lose something else. So you push in a big commuter sum cost, and you push out something else, and that's invariably going to be money towards education, provision, and or affordable housing. Because if you model any of the major sites that have already got planning approval in Taunton, like Staple Grove West and Orchard Grove, if you were to add hundreds of thousands of pounds representing 20 years worth of maintenance monies basically have very little left in Orchard Grove in terms of affordable housing, and it would have significant impacts at Staple Grove West as well. And that's why the land code model is so attractive to developers and by default the councils as well, because it's allowed effectively additional charges to be made on homeowners. And when that model then goes into a commercial sphere, you're becoming hostage to the admin fees, the profit margins that drive those commercial entities. And those are the things that won't drive the town council. The things that drive you will be equity, fairness, keeping costs as low as possible. And obviously you've got a critical mass. So
I think that would be our principal aim, I think.
I think you must go over the gradation of this hybrid model that I've sort of developed further and said, well, you have got precept, these houses will be paying precept. If you can cross subsidise that into the overall cost, then those houses will be paying something, but it will be significantly less than they would have been to a commercial company. So I think your idea then about trying to grade that down to nothing would be fantastic, because it puts them in the same situation as any other household then in Taunton.
After 50 years, that's what is that as part of the town now, isn't it? There's no distinction. Well, thank you very much. I think we're conscious enough to anyone. So I did propose to suspend for anyone. Did we actually need to vote on that? No, that's okay. So Carrie, if you need to go and take a quick break, and then we'll come back and then we'll vote on this and then we'll listen to the last one.
Okay, quick break.
Yeah.
Quick break.
Yeah.
Okay. Or were you going to vote? I've got another question for you.